I'm Shaun, so I'm one of the directors over here at Amicus. So we're kind of like I've worked with some of you previously, a niche tech recruitment agency. We do like a lot of work in the community, obviously to try and give back, and obviously one of the things we do is obviously do like some either in-person roundtable or virtual roundtable events with leadership. So obviously tonight's talk is on how to inspire more women into tech leadership, etc. So Min, do you want to obviously give us an overview of yourself, and then obviously we'll just go around and then we can go from there?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, my name is Min, and I'm currently an engineering manager at WeTransfer. So in the file transfer business at the moment. Prior to WeTransfer, I was the head of engineering and also a CTO at a series of earlier stage startups. And prior to that, I had an IC background in machine learning engineering and data engineering. Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just on mute there. So, Lisa, do you want to give us a background to yourself? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Lisa. I started my tech career as a kind of web developer. So I worked for startups and medium-sized companies and Oracle, IT, kind of a big tech giant. And for the last 5 years, I think I'm mainly focused on the consultancy. So at the moment, I am working for Digital as the head of engineering. We help the organization go through the transformation process. So my tech background, I think from front-end, back-end database, and I did, when the time I was with Oracle, was the first generation of AI product, that's machine learning side as well. I think moving on, the hottest, I guess, the latest is the cloud migration side of it. So yeah, that's just a nutshell about me.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Lisa. Priyanka, do you want to just give us an overview of your career today?
Hi, everyone. Lovely to meet you all. Super successful and amazing women here. I'm glad to be part of this group. So my career, a big part of my career I spent at Sky. I think it's a household name. A lot of you would know it. I headed delivery of tools and platforms to support delivery, quality, reliability of Sky's flagship product, SkyQ. Moved on as a head of engineering position at a sort of startup scale-up style business, sort of around 70 people. I focused on people, processes, platform, and quality over there, optimized the engineering strategy and processes, along with hiring talent, led DevOps transformation, and whatnot. From there, I moved on as director of engineering at Babylon Health. So I lead the Center of Excellence department at Babylon, focused on, again, people, engineering culture and growth, process improvement and optimization, organizational transformation. My team and department looked after the pipelines and supported and enabling delivery of technology to clinicians and patients to improve healthcare outcomes for everybody. And well, that's the history and story of my career.
Thanks for that, Priyanka. Yeah. And finally, Matty, just want to give us an overview before we kind of kickstart, if that's okay.
Sure. So today I'm the head of engineering at SLashID, which is an early stage startup. Before that, I spent 5 years at CrowdStrike, which is in the cybersecurity space, where I moved from engineer to head of mobile over the span of 5 years. My background is a non-traditional computer science one, in the sense that I started off in biotechnology, moved to bioinformatics, and then into mobile development with a bit of data science thrown in between.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that. Thanks, obviously, for everyone giving an overview. So, as I said, tonight's kind of like topic. Priyanka actually mentioned to me about we always like to look at diversity and things like that. And obviously, one of the big things in technology is definitely the lack of females within tech leadership, and how we can ultimately all inspire people into them positions is, something that probably everyone around here can kind of resonate with. So the first kind of question I wanted to kind of open it up is like, there obviously is a lack of female leaders within technology and stuff like that. So what do we kind of believe is like the barriers to that, and why do we believe potentially there is the disparity between male and female in terms of technology leadership? I don't know if you want to kind of give any ideas initially, Priyanka.
I think let me start with one, and then others can pitch in. I think not being able to see women in those positions already, because there are very few women in technology leadership at the moment. I looked at some stats a couple of weeks ago, and it was like there are only 5% of leadership positions in technology. There are women there, which is very sad and a low stat, right? So not actually being able to see them there actually is a deterring factor. It is a reason why a lot of women don't feel like they can get there or they want to get there. And so that's one of the big reasons. I'll let others chip in for others reasons.
Do you think there's a lot down to like cultural norms and what we think of as a woman's job versus a man's job? Like, obviously the barrier is not just at the higher levels, like at the engineering management level, but it starts earlier. If you go and look at the amount of women in computer science degree courses, that's where the funnel really starts to shrink right from the get-go. So I don't know. I don't really have a good reason why, but I think there's a lot down to.
I think I definitely agree. That's a starting point already from I think it's somewhere about 20% to start off with, and then it drops to that 5% that Priyanka mentioned, and that drop off throughout the years as well. With I think as progressive as a lot of perhaps cultures are now today about gender equality in terms of things like childcare and kind of I guess household kind of management. I think there's still a ways to go on that, and I think that also contributes to the drop off throughout the years.
Yeah, I think like when what you alluded to and everyone's alluded to, obviously is across technology there is a lack of diversity and gender diversity for sure. But I think the stat, like Priyanka was saying, I think it's something like in engineering, like it's between some variations, but it's no more than 20% for sure. And then in leadership, it's even less. So even though it's not even retrospective in terms of the amount of then people getting to leadership, and I think alluding to the fact of like role models and things like that, and like the lack of I think hopefully, I think the community are doing quite a lot more to enable females to step into some roles and things like that. In terms of like, what do we believe that in terms of like companies and things like that, do we believe that they do enough to kind of promote people within? Is there anything that they could do more, I suppose, to get people into these positions? Like, what have your experiences been when working for clients, and how we diversity are when it comes to like promotion or hiring externally, I suppose?
I don't think I've encountered companies that do, I want to say positive discrimination, but maybe it's just a lack of awareness, or like having diversity training at the director and above level, and these are the people who will choose you as head of engineering. So I don't think they're necessarily aware of the biases, and they're not necessarily actively trying to promote a culture shift. So you do experience, I think, as a woman in tech, some misconceptions from the higher ups and also the engineers. Like, I bet everyone's been told or assumed you were not as technical as your male colleagues, because that happens to everyone. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you've had any.
I resonate with everything you just said. I feel like we face higher standards and probably lower rewards after even meeting those standards. And it is down to sort of upskilling and training your staff. And I call it a skill, really. It is a skill to be able to hire diverse talent that had good representation of men and women and other diversity groups as well. It is a skill. And I think there isn't enough being done. So when I worked at Sky was amazingly good at training their sort of staff, especially leadership. They ran a few programs as well to promote it. I just feel like it doesn't filter through enough to reach out to many and more people across sort of the entire country and globally. So we should do more about this. I know some companies do talk about it and some leaders do talk about it. A lot of times, whether that talk converts into action is questionable as well.
Yeah.
I did want to add that I guess I think I have a really good experience at WeTransfer because as a B Corp, there's a lot of focus on people, planet, profit, and in that order. And so that's, I think, a lot more, as you say, like awareness of diversity at various levels of the company. Certainly the kind of company values attracts a certain kind of person to the company. And therefore, I feel like personally, I have a lot more allies in the company as well, both from all genders, in terms of kind of championing and shedding light on unconscious biases that might I guess, prevent various people who might not be in the majority from kind of moving forward in their career or breaking a glass ceiling if it exists.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think allies certainly and their company culture and values plays a really big part to me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely culture side of it. I think I've been quite lucky, and digital is really promote women. I guess it's kind of it's encourage diversity, and we are actually, I think, on a monthly basis, and we publish how many women's in the leadership, how many women's actually in the company. It's still not a quite equal share. I think nevertheless is much better than some other companies. I do think the culture, it is a culture thing, and then there's I think, as the panel mentioned, there is undoubtedly there's an unconsciousness bias in there, and women are less logical, more emotional. I think that depends on individuals. It's quite difficult until, I guess, you work with an individual, you know, different individuals have different characters. But from kind of how do we make that balance, and women in leadership, I think the ratio of women in tech it is really not quite there, right? Never mind the leadership. That's I do think the company culture is the direction on the top. How do you want to tackle this?
Yeah, I think like a great couple of points there are obviously training, especially at that, like you said, Matilde, Priyanka, etc. We were talking about training, you know, people are actually hiring head of engineering, director of engineering, etc., into unconscious bias and stuff like that. I suppose it's, you know, in larger companies, it's sometimes maybe easier with bigger budgets and things like that. And I think that's where there's some kind of maybe disparity. But like everyone said, I think it's got to come down to the culture. And I like what you said about, I mean, where and Lisa, where they actually publish, you know, the leadership and the diversity, etc. It actually shows that they care about it, because I think there's one of two things, and there's all well and good actually saying you care about it, actually doing it is something completely different. Is there, would you say, like, in terms of what benefits have you all found from being in a leadership position? Like, what benefits would you say you've found from being in a leadership position within technology?
I think it's the businesses that benefit, isn't it, by having both women and women in leadership.
Yeah.
I feel like as a leader, you are able to impact strategy, drive deliveries, and sort of support with the business vision, right? Like any leader, whether you're a woman or man, that's the advantage of being in a leadership position.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to add, unrelated to your question, but I just wanted to add it. We talk about leaders sort of being trained. I think women themselves need to be trained as well of how to deal with these situations, as well as how to actually create sort of equitable situations for themselves, show people otherwise, become more visible, communicate effectively, be yourself, stand up for yourself. That is very important as well. And a lot of women struggle with that too. So I think that is something that businesses and teams should focus on as well.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of related to Shaun's question in that you're describing yourself as a role model by being in leadership and being an example for others in terms of how to lead authentically and also as an example of a woman in a leadership position.
Yeah. Did anyone else add anything to that point?
Yeah, I do think
Go on.
I do think it's the role model bit. I think it's definitely beneficial for the company. And for myself, I think the beneficial bit, I think it's good to hear different views. I think in order for us to improve, you do have to, I mean, we can agree, we have different views, right? But those views should be encouraged, right, to share it. I do think from myself, there's definitely how, in terms of a tech strategy side of it, and women and men, not gender-based individuals, right, have different views. I think women are more, to me, more definitely more sympathetic in some ways, right? There's things to be considered more. In the short term, maybe certain solutions, certain strategies better, but in the long term, I do think the women slightly had a longer, wider range of views than, just technically is it doable? Okay. Yes, but in certain views, is people going to enjoy doing that, right? In the long term, in some scenarios, probably not. I do think that add additional values. But it's not just women and men. I think people from different background, and that would add values to business decisions as well.
Were you going to add something there, Matty?
Just wanted to add that you asked about benefits. For me, and this maybe, it's my own enjoyment of this role, but I really like the intersection of tech and people that comes with these types of roles. So you can impact both.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
What I meant by, like, what I maybe phrased the question wrong. I was kind of, and you've answered most of it. What I was kind of meaning is what has it had the benefit on your career, and ultimately, what have being in a leadership as opposed to a software engineer, what have you seen the differences and things like that? I suppose what have people seen the difference between, if you were a female engineer currently or an engineer in general, what do you say the biggest differences are, and how's that had an impact on your own career?
I think it's the impact, really. Like I wouldn't be, that's the bit I enjoy the most. It's like you can change things, maybe not everything, but yeah, you can shape things in the way you see fit.
Yeah, and I'd say in my own way, being able to create a more equitable future as well via, for example, like work in the career framework, having a more influence over shaping that, making that equitable in terms of the language we use, the way that we describe competencies, which ultimately shapes behaviors and cultures in the organization in terms of how people progress through their careers, and it shouldn't unfairly penalize one group over the other, but really help us push towards the company values in terms of how we would like people to engage and where we want their competencies to lie for the benefit of the organization.
Going back to the point, I suppose, in terms of like if you're say for instance the vast majority of people may come from a technical background, what kind of what advice would you give someone who's like wants to step into that role? How can they almost like elevate themselves into that role without having the title? What sort of things would you advise that they do to maybe show that they can be a leader before they kind of have that title?
I can. Okay, Lisa, go ahead and then I'll speak.
Yeah, we should have a queue. Yeah, I do think it's a skill set, right? I think in leadership, they require different skills than just the engineer side of it. Depend on organizations, I think in terms of there are different leadership in tech. One is, I guess, tech lead, as we understand, that is really lead a team to delivery. So to me, if you want to be a tech lead, you need to really fully understand of the full software life cycle, right? And so from the planning to the release to the maintenance, all of that, the skills need there, and then also overseeing the big picture, right? What the software able to deliver, and make sure you deliver something which is useful, and therefore the alignment with the UX, the product, and business vision, all of that is very important to me. The stakeholder kind of management is important, but when you move, I guess, a bit higher than either a VP or head of engineering, and then you managing the managers, that's really the people side of it. I do think even you not be a manager, the people skill that's shine through, even the teamwork, right? So, you know, you engagement with your team members. How do you resolve the conflict? How do you make sure team or engage have, you know, motivated bit to complete something? All of those teamwork skills, people skills, they are key as the leadership. I think, or we just have to work on negotiation skills as well, you know, and then all of those skill set, I think it is definitely you can demonstrate that within a team. We just need to really iron out what is your strength and which bit you need to work on. I think to me that's something is crucial. And then any jobs, you know, even it's not technical jobs and people side of it, leadership side of it, you can always demonstrate. You just need to know which bit you're able to demonstrate, which bit you haven't got, you need to work on it.
And I would say it's also understanding the motivations of why someone wants to step up and lead. Like you could be a leader from a technical perspective, but not ever manage a team in terms of being an IC technical leader. Or you could end up focusing more on management and kind of organization and people skills. More so, especially as you get towards the manager of managers, understanding what their motivations in the first place, and also helping them find situations where they can kind of start to practice that influence and the kind of collaboration skills needed to kind of start to move in a more of an influential leadership position. And I do think that can be shown from any level of someone's career.
So one thing I wanted to add, the way I look at software engineering is it's a collaborative sport, right? It's not a one-person thing. It's no longer somebody writes code in isolation anymore, right? We work together. There are lots of ways and opportunities to actually lead either smaller projects or actually lead outside of your work areas. You could be leading, I don't know, diversity and inclusion agenda, right? It could be any of the different things that are in your remit of your business that you could be leading. And those all help in developing the skills. having a mentor or actually mentoring others, both sides really help you develop skills as well in this area. So that's my advice to people who want to grow into leadership.
I would give a very practical advice, which may or may not be applicable for everyone, but I would have some very honest conversations with your manager and set goals, because part of getting to, we're talking about a promotion, and if you want to be promoted in your own environment, you need to understand what the people who choose on promotions look for. Many companies will have internal standards, and I think it pays off to know them and work with your manager or a mentor if you think your manager is not particularly receptive on setting up goals and how to achieve and like demonstrate the skills that you should demonstrate. I think it can be incredibly effective, and I've had people in my team who wanted a promotion, and essentially at some point, if they come to you saying, I've done X and Y and Z, it's very difficult to tell them, no, you cannot get there. So I think it pays off.
Yeah. So are you saying that ultimately to almost ask your manager at that point, when you want to realize that you want to go down that route, what kind of criteria do you look for when you are promoting someone to that level, and then almost demonstrating that? Because I understand your point. Are you saying that people are asking to be promoted, but they're not actually understanding what they need to do, and then they come to you at that point? Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, and it goes both ways. It's also, I wish that, every system was super fair and you could all agree on skill levels and evaluate every person objectively. But in the end, that's not what happens. In the end, it's 3 people sitting together in a Zoom meeting, doing annual reviews and saying, oh, I think this person's ready to be promoted. And I say this, and I've been part of many of these panels. And like knowing what the criteria are really helps you at every stage, not just as a woman who wants to get into leadership, but really helps you to reach your goal. Because otherwise you'll never know whether they are valuing, I don't know, collaboration a lot more than I see work. I'm just randomly spitting out words, but
and that's where I think a career framework is just makes it so much more transparent and equitable for all the engineers and the company to understand like what they need to do to get to the next level, and also on the different tracks in terms of what really appeals to them, if there's a separate IC and management track as well. And having said that, I've just gone through a calibration session where we were leveling across the whole engineering organization, and I just say I was really pleased that kind of the conversations we're having and having that career framework as a baseline, as a underpinning our discussions, really help to, I guess, be fairer and more consistent across engineers that might be working on different disciplines and different initiatives in a year.
Yeah, and just adding to what Priyanka said about mentors, I think it's really important for you to have somebody who is your, I'm gonna say, champion in at a higher level than you are, who recognizes your value and can essentially advocate for you in certain discussions where you're not gonna be in the room. So the best advice is always to convince your manager. Like they will push you forward.
Yeah, just add to that, I think it is important to, if you want to progress within your own company, but I think to talk to your direct manager, but opportunities depend on the size of the company, right? Opportunities may not always there. I think to me, it is important to understand, as I think Ming mentioned, your drive, right? You want to be leadership, what reason for it? And therefore find a good mentor to identify your personal growth. I think that's more important. Once identified your growth, where you want to go, identify your gaps with your mentor, then you can really to polish your skills to that level. If the current company isn't or hasn't got opportunities, and you know that there is other companies who would love to have your skills, as you know, as long as you get there. I think it is very important for individuals to understand where they are and where they want to go, find the right mentors, and you know, walk towards that goal.
The layman language I use for everything that you all have said is, it's like we're driving the car of our career. Don't be in the passenger seat, be in the driver's seat, and actually take it in the direction that you want to take it in, right? And I think it obviously is relevant for both men and women and is equally applicable to both. And I'm not saying women stay in the passenger seat at all, but I think both should constantly be looking at where they need to go and own it, right? You don't have to wait for your manager to come and give you your promotion letter. It's okay to ask.
Yeah, I think there's all really good points. I think I think having sort of like a framework in place, and and also having that confidence, like you just said, Priyanka, to go and ask, you know, if you know that you go in above and beyond and you've had that framework in place and you're hitting them goals, I think having that confidence to just say, look, I've done X, Y, and Z, you know, etc. I believe this was what the goal set for, the framework was in place, you know, asking that. I think that shows a lot of courage and confidence, but everyone should do that. Everyone should push that forward. Because then they're hitting their own milestones in the career, aren't they? Yeah. In terms of, I suppose, in terms of, like we were talking around, has anyone, you know, had any obstacles in the career where they've had to kind of overcome them sort of things that we've discussed? Has anyone had any like obstacles or put things in place to elevate their own career, I suppose?
Without naming names and companies and people, I've had where I felt like I couldn't grow anymore in the business because I didn't feel I was supported by my line manager, and I just felt like at that point of time, like just the conversation went, hey, I'm actually bored in this job right now because I've done almost everything that I need to do. What I want to do something else next. And the reply was, I did the same thing for 30 years. You're just 30. And I was like, okay, time for me to leave. So there are circumstances. This is obviously an extreme case, and it was a long time ago. So hopefully it doesn't happen anymore. But there are circumstances where you would see, okay, you've hit the roadblock at one company, one department, one place, and you need to get out of your comfort zone, go into the complex positions of finding a new challenge for yourself, right? Just having that confidence to be able to do that and take the turn from your road and actually drive in a different direction is sometimes needed. Sorry, I'm taking the car analogy a little bit too far.
I think it works really well, and what you say definitely resonates with me in that I did take time out from working to go back to university and do a data science master's, because I was at a point where I didn't feel I was learning quite as much as I wanted to. I wasn't really growing in as much as I wanted to, and in perhaps the direction I wanted to, and that's definitely opened up a whole kind of slew of opportunities after that. And I think that kind of continuous improvement is something that I really value for myself, and so that's kind of, I guess, driven a lot of my pivots through the career, or perhaps, as you say, turning left or right, driving the car and turning left or right.
Great advice.
Yeah, I think if we change jobs, right, and then you know the current role isn't quite fulfilling, I think we do that for different reasons, right? And I think sometimes probably is the people side of conflict or the culture of the company not quite there. On different, I do think as a woman in tech, definitely when I started, there was definitely a lot less less women than now. I think we are aware of it and we promote it a lot more now than 17 years back. So I do think when the time I joined the team, I was thinking, and we had those very early beginning of my career. You go into a room, you have like 6 guys just focus on here. You kind of, okay, am I in kind of a den or something? And you do have I stayed with the company for a couple of years and then I left. But I think you do, there always going to be something not perfect. I think we just have to take it as a journey. It isn't about the result, it's about the journey you're taking. And most of the career I think I've done, there always something. I'm not going to lie, there always something. Either career is not quite going to the direction I want to be, or the opportunity isn't there, and there's always going to be something. I think my intake on that, take everything as a ride, just as an experience of life, and go with it.
No, really good, yeah. And I suppose in terms of like advice, if people are wanting to step into a leadership role, what kind of advice would you kind of give them? I think we've touched on some of the points in terms of role models and mentors, etc., and things like that. But is there any more advice that you could like give to somebody that wants to step into a leadership role?
I think it will be a summary of a lot of what we said, right? Look through where the gaps may or may not be in where you want to be in your next role, right? The leadership role that you want. Work with the people around you, whether your mentor, your coach, or your line manager, to fill those gaps. Stand up for yourself. Ask for what you need, either in the same company, you will get it, or you will get it elsewhere if you don't get it there, and have the confidence to have those conversations. I do think to allow for all of this to happen, we all should give back to the community. We've become leaders in our own areas and actually mentor others to allow for them to do these when they are in these situations, and actually coach and mentor them through their journey into being leaders as well. So I think it's just our way of giving back, and also get mentored from other leaders ourselves to make sure we can get where we want to go further as well. Yeah, and keep coming back to the mentoring part. I really feel it's really important, because as much as obviously at the workplace we're learning constantly, right? We're growing. But a lot of times having somebody outside of the workplace who you can talk with, communicate with, gives you a completely different lens, and you grow in a very different way. So I think that's very important for people who want to get into leadership.
Yeah, I would add on to that. I think to me is the impact. So you want to be leadership, but what impact would you want to make? I think give to community is one of it, or maybe build a better team is another motive. I think is what impact would you want to make? I think that's really to make as individuals, not just men or women, to be authentic yourself. So you need to know why you want the leadership and what impact you want to make. I think that's very important to know. Otherwise, you just want, I guess, a title. And if you just want a title, and it's not going to get there. Let's be frank, right? You have to have a passion. I think, why do you want that role? You have to, what impact you want to make. I think that's important.
No. Yeah, that's really good. I think on your point, Priyanka, I think, in terms of having somebody that you can almost like a sounding board in your career to, it's like you said, when you're in the thick of it day to day in your career, you sometimes need some maybe outside guidance and stuff like that. And I often, when I ever speak to like junior engineers and stuff, I always say, if you can ever have somebody that you can, ask questions to and stuff like that, that's probably been in your situation. It's so beneficial. So I really like that point. Would anyone said they've, you mentioned that a number of times, Priyanka. Has that happened like throughout your career? Have you had that sort of person or people that you've always been able to go to and have that kind of sounding board or that outside noise, so to speak?
Not always, but a lot of times in the last 10 to 12 years. And I've I've actively gone to make it happen for myself, as well as I actively mentor others outside of my business as well, and look for opportunities where I can and continue those connections with people. Because I know I learned a lot, where there were situations where maybe my logical brain shut down and emotional started working more, just using your analogy there, or maybe where I needed to sort of understand where I should be going next in my career, and wanted to learn from other people's experiences as to what would they do in a certain situation at work as well. And it really helps you have that support. And not everybody has that at home, right? You don't want to be talking to your partner about these all the time. Well, you can always use and having a partner who can mentor and coach is a great thing as well. But having somebody in the professional world it just works wonders. Yeah.
And I definitely echo that. I think the in terms of I think what was described to me before is having a network of advisors. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal kind of mentor-mentee relationship, but a lot of it's like quite informal in terms of people you go to for advice, and a lot of times they might not realize that they're actually your mentor at certain points. I would say has been, in hindsight, really valuable when I was starting out, and also more so when I was more on the top end of things in terms of a leadership position. I think it can get quite lonely at times, so having that network of advisors has been really valuable to me.
I agree. I look at it, and I'm not in technology. I suppose I'm in that sphere, but I think, like you said, Min, it's actually quite lonely sometimes when you're in like a leadership role and you don't actually feel like you know where to go or who to ask, and sometimes then can be almost stagnated, can't you? So I think if you have that person or that group that you can go and speak to and just get some counsel off them or some advice, I think that's super important. I suppose, would anyone else, like, on the topic, would anyone else say there any anything else that you'd like to add to obviously the discussion? I suppose I've kind of gone through the questions I had, but I don't know if anyone kind of has any like final thoughts at all, or.
I wanted to sort of ask the group, are there any inspirational women leaders in technology that you follow or get inspired from? And I would love to find and actually utilize that myself. And I think it would be useful for anybody else who's looking out for us too. Do you guys have any?
I guess I would say I kind of look more for an archetype of leader, not necessarily their genders, more of the values they hold, and that's in line with my personal values. So yeah, I guess I don't think I have specifically women ones, but certainly the kind of or at least the kind of people I look up to in terms of how they shape organizations and things like that are like Marty Kagan in terms of empowered teams. So not a woman, but more generally the sort of values in terms of coaching teams and building, I guess, environments. I think that's more equitable to people from different backgrounds, and more collaborative is where I seek inspiration from.
I really hope in a few years it becomes like there are so many women in leadership as well that we can start taking more inspiration, and in the names that we think about, more women pop up automatically. Really hope so. A few that I feel are great. Sheryl Sandberg is great. She's a great speaker, inspiring speaker. Reshma Sogani, the founder of Girls Who Code. I feel like that's an inspirational person as well. I do get the whole idea of where we align in values. That's the sort of right inspirational person for you. But I do feel like I look up to, hey, how can I get there? And looking up with somebody of the same gender makes me feel like, yes, it can happen. And that's just the reason why I asked the question, are there any inspirational women you guys look for?
hopefully in 10 years' time, if there's women looking up to the panel here and stuff like that, and being super inspired by your career journey. So I think it is important, like you're saying. I think there is such a disparity in technology in general, but in leadership specifically, I see it every day, right? You know, I see the lack of leaders that are female. I think if you have role models and people that you look up to, and it doesn't have to just be gender, but I agree if it is, and you can see that it doesn't then become that big hurdle. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I really resonate with that as well, to be honest. Would anyone else say they have anyone that they've been kind of inspired by, not mentioning names or anything, but yeah, would anyone else say they have any female leaders that they've been inspired by?
I think not in tech. In terms of technology wise, I think Steve Jobs is my idol. You know, he's passionate about things and then just went for a visionized leader. In terms of women leaders, I think has to be Michelle Obama. She's so authentic and great communicator, and so kind of really powerful when she makes a speech. But I think other things is I'm hoping in the next 20 years we won't have too much this kind of discussion women and men, right? The fact we're discussing it, we can already see there's inequality there, right? Well, we never say, oh, would there any men come into tech or any other industry? You won't have that kind of discussion on topic or panel, right, to discuss. The fact we're here to discussing it, we already know, and there's a lot of work need to be still yet to be done.
So I have an 11-year-old daughter. I really hope she grows up in a much more equitable society and is able to make believe that she can do anything that she wants to. Can be a scientist or an engineer or a doctor or a musician if she wants to. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Just on mute. Yeah, so I suppose the final question, it relates back to my in I suppose in wider company formats. Do I think we just touched on it? Do you think like benefits wise? Do you feel like it's companies are starting to understand like like we're seeing like a lot more companies promote maybe 4-day weeks or particular things around returning to work and things like that? Do we feel like there's still like a long way to go in that? I know we're talking about coaching and things like that, but in terms of like benefits to promote, this sort of thing, especially around, do we feel like companies are starting maybe to get on that journey, or do we still feel like there's a long way to go?
I would say a long way to go with differences. There are a lot of differences depending on where in the world you are. And I want to say a lot of what companies do is forced by local laws. And so if you don't have maternity protection, companies are not necessarily the harbingers of women's rights. And so you're defenseless in some ways. So yeah, I think there's a lot to do, not just on the on the corporate side, but also on the side of society to make a less the fact that you're a woman not being a point of discrimination just because you are supported throughout your life journey, which often includes children, not for everyone, but that's one of the big factors here.
And I'd say in terms of, I'll go back to the company culture. So in terms of so at WeTransfer, we have offices in the Netherlands, UK, and the US, or at least big hubs. And it's interesting to see to your point, the differences in local laws and what the minimum level is across the countries. But as a company, we can adopt cultures that raise that bar to equitable standards across the world. And almost, I would say it's really interesting seeing the Dutch law being applied in terms of paternity, maternity, and time with children after birth, and also supporting coming back to work for both women and men. I think that's been really kind of quite positive in terms of keeping people in work, in terms of having that flexibility of working arrangements, and also the kind of company support above and beyond what is legally required of the business in a certain area. To me, I've seen definitely a lot of peers who have benefited from that in coming back to work and being able to kind of have that balance of still caring for their newborns, their young children, while still moving forward in their career. So I'd say, I guess I have a positive outlook on that, and I think the company's culture can really shape that.
One thing that I see, or at least it's common now in startups, and in most companies, not most, but is flexible working hours. I think that already helps a lot in general and doesn't really affect people's productivity overall, in my opinion. You just allow them to get on with their lives outside of work in a way that makes sense for them. So that's a good one that I don't think gets a lot of pushback these days, especially with remote working.
Yeah, I think hybrid working is definitely, I can't see how many companies going to promote their role if they're full-time back to office. I think hybrid has to be probably the way to go and to stay, to encourage more women or men into certain tech companies. Yeah.
I was just going to touch quickly on that point, Matty, about, like countries of different laws within countries. I feel like, with remote working, hopefully like if we were so stuck in like a UK bubble and everyone we hired was from the UK and then I think with remote working, hopefully what companies will start to see is that, the differences in different, country laws. Like, an example, I didn't know in Spain that you get as a standard law you get 16 weeks off the paternity leave. And hopefully more senior figures within companies will start maybe then adopting that for their wider company as a standard. And I think hopefully stuff like that may help. I know you touched on that, Min, to be fair, when you said the laws in Holland are a lot different from the UK, but if then company leaders adopt that across the board, that's beneficial for everyone, hopefully, because there are different laws in different countries. So I don't know if anyone had any finals. I'm always conscious of time and these things and stuff like that. They always seem to go so quickly. Has anyone kind of got any final thoughts? We're coming up to sort of nearly 6:30, but I didn't know if anyone had any final thoughts at all, or anyone wants to add anything.
Just, I think we've touched on it, but I just reiterated, networking is really important, especially for anybody to actually progress in leadership roles. And I'm not saying that's because you get roles because you're friends with people, but you actually find out about opportunities and learn more about things and actually grow as an individual by knowing more people. We live in a world with humans, so I think it's really important to invest time in it. There are lots of ways to do it. You don't have to be physically present to even network these days as well. They could be virtual webinars, virtual meetups to join, and obviously face-to-face is most valuable if you can do it. So I really recommend that everybody should go ahead and do that. Meetups, Eventbrite, and there are quite a few other sort of different forums as well. There are lots of Slack channels right now, lots of different little sort of female founders Slack channel, like-minded female Slack channel, CTO craft Slack channels. There are lots of these places that you can actually get invitation from, and there are some amazing conversations that happen over there that we all can learn from.
Perfect. Has anyone else, that was really insightful, Priyanka, has anyone else got anything finally to add? Or is it I don't know.
Yes, definitely creating allies in the industry as well. So whether it's male, female allies, giving more visibility to getting to an equitable place through raising both raising everyone if possible. So like the alongside around the kind of childcare side of things, by making it easier for the male partners of a woman to contribute to childcare, means that the woman could also spend more time on her career as well. So kind of raising that level, I think, would help us get to a more equitable future.
Perfect. Well, fine. Yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for your time. I've been pretty inspired by the journey of you all this evening, and obviously your careers. And I'm sure, like a lot of people, you know, like Priyanka said, in 10 years' time, we have, and hopefully people can watch this and actually take stuff away and on their own careers. And I think there's some super valuable advice, especially around role models, mentors, you know, almost getting yourself out of the comfort zone. I love the car analogy, Priyanka. I think that was a perfect way to sum it up. So I just wanted to thank you all for your time, really. And I'm sure many people that watch and stuff like that will find it super valuable. So thanks very much.
Can I add something to the car analogy just to end it all, right? As you said, Lisa, we're on a ride, we're on a journey right now, and make sure you allow your journey to take you to the destination you want to be. Like roads never end, that your career is never going to end. It just keeps continuing. Make sure you keep traveling through the different parts and enjoy life. So I tried to make it sound fun. I don't think it's that fun, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm on the same page anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to find something you're passionate, you really enjoy to do. There's so many different aspects in tech. Find an area you're really passionate about, and I think it's very important.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for that, Lisa. Okay, well, thanks so much again. Yeah, really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll all catch up soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
having us.